The first thing I noticed about Ari was that she didn't blink. Her golden eyes shimmered beneath the glow of Horizon Station's artificial lighting, wide and unblinking, like she was constantly drinking in more than just light. The second thing I learned, she was terrified of the dark. That one caught me off guard. You'd expect an alien girl who glows in low light and hums in harmonic resonance to be unbothered by shadows. But the moment station lights dipped for cycle recalibration, Ari froze. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just stood still, feathers on her scalp quivering, the soft luminescence of her skin dimming as though fear siphoned the glow right out. Of her, I was her liaison. That was the official term. It meant translator, cultural tutor, and, as it turned out, roommate. Horizon Station had only one available double-occupancy quarter in the civilian sector, and the brass figured a human. Touch would help Velian integration. I didn't object. I was used to weird shifts and weirder assignments. Besides, Ari wasn't what I'd expected from the species known for star hymns and empathy rituals. She was inquisitive, sharp, sometimes frustratingly literal. Sarcasm bounced off her like static. I once told her the coffee tasted like liquefied trash, and she started looking for chemical contaminants, but she was trying. She asked about Earth food, Earth films, Earth music, endless questions about why humans did the things we did. I showed her pizza. She didn't love it, but was fascinated by the concept of melting cheese. I showed her horror movies. That she did love. But she always made me keep the lights on afterward. At night, she hummed to herself in quiet waves of sound that vibrated faintly against the walls, like whale songs through steel. At first, I found it unnerving. Then I realized she was soothing herself to sleep. After a week, I started sleeping better with her humming through the wall. One evening, after we both finished our shift reports, I found her sitting by the viewport with her knees drawn to her chest. Her skin glowed a gentle shade of sea blue. She was watching the stars. "Your kind," she said without turning, "has strange courage." "What do you mean?" I asked, sitting beside her. "You fling yourselves into space with machines. You barely understand, searching for things you're not ready to meet. That is bold." Her voice was calm, almost musical. "We call that stupidity," I said with a grin. She tilted her head in that alien way, puzzled. "Do you fear the dark?" she asked. I paused. "Everyone does, a little." Her glow dimmed. "The dark remembers. Where I come from, we do not sing in shadow." I didn't press further. I didn't have to. That night, for the first time, I didn't hear her hum. The silence settled into the room like dust. And though I didn't know it yet, that was the night everything began to shift. Not with a scream or an alarm, but with quiet, with stillness, and with a girl who didn't blink staring into the black beyond the stars. She came into my room without knocking. Just past midnight, the door hissed open with a soft breath of pressurized air, and there she was standing barefoot on the cold floor, wrapped in a thermal blanket, glowing faintly like moonlight bleeding through fog. Her golden eyes were wide, reflecting every sliver of ambient light. She looked like a ghost. No, she looked scared. "Ari?" I sat up in bed, instinct already kicking in. "What's wrong?" She didn't speak at first. She stepped inside quickly, letting the door seal shut behind her. The blanket she clutched in both hands was shaking. "Can I sleep next to you tonight, human?" The words hit me like ice water. Not because of what she said, but how she said it. Her voice wasn't curious or awkward or playful like usual. It was small, hollow, desperate. "What? Why? Did something happen?" She glanced back toward the door as if afraid it might open again. Her glow dimmed. There was something in my room. I threw off my blanket and stood, suddenly wide awake. "What do you mean something?" It was not Velian. It was not you. It moved without sound, left no trace in the air, but I felt it. My heart rate kicked up, but I kept my voice calm. Like an intruder? She nodded once. No heat, no motion signature, but it was there. I opened the cabinet and pulled out my sidearm from its magnetic holster. Standard issue with a phase pulse mod. Not much, but enough to stop most biological threats. All right, I said. Let's check your room. She hesitated. You would fight it? If I have to, I said, checking the charge level. Welcome to Earth-style hospitality. Her feathers twitched faintly. Not amusement, tension. Still, she followed me. The corridor outside our quarters was empty, dimly lit in night cycle mode. Her room was just down the hall door, already ajar. I stepped in first. Immediately, something felt wrong. Not invisible. Way no mess, no broken panels, no evidence of forced entry. But the air felt off. Colder than the corridor. Heavy, almost oily in my lungs. Her lights flickered softly, then steadied as I crossed the threshold. A low hum passed through the wall. I turned toward it. Just the recycler? No, wrong tone. My eye caught a smear on the back panel of the bulkhead-like static caught mid-transmission. Etched into metal dot, I tapped the panel. I report anomalies in this sector. The voice came soft and flat. Subdimensional residue detected. Entity briefly phased into local reality. Classification: unidentified. Probability of return: 87%. Behind me, Ari gasped quietly. I told you, she whispered. It watches. I turned and looked at her. She stood in the center of the room, visibly trembling, her arms crossed tight against her chest. I believe you, I said. Her eyes widened. You do? Yeah. Your kind's attuned to quantum shifts, right? Your bones practically vibrate when reality stutters. If you say something was here, I believe it. She exhaled, shaking. My people. We were taught to ignore them. The things between. We call them whispers. Well, this one's not whispering. Anymore. I looked back at the wall. It's banging on the damn door. Back in our shared quarters, I activated lockdown protocols, rerouting extra shielding and enabling physical locks on all vents and doorways. I even pulled an old kinetic barrier disc from the emergency locker and installed it near my bed, just in case. She didn't ask to sleep beside me again. She just sat down on the floor, blanket wrapped tight, glow still faint. I could tell she was trying not to cry. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to be a burden. I sat beside her. You're not. Whatever that thing is. It messed with the wrong roommate. She gave a tiny fluttering laugh that faded quickly. After a long silence, she looked up at me, expression unreadable. We were taught that humans are primitive, emotional. But tonight, you acted without fear. Oh no, I said, leaning back against the wall. I'm definitely afraid. I'm just good at ignoring that part. She turned her head and stared at me like I'd spoken a secret spell. That, she said softly, is a strange strength. Outside, the lights flickered again. Inside, we waited in silence. The lights in our quarters had begun to dim randomly. Not during station night cycles, but in the middle of our conversations, our meals, sometimes even mid-sentence. Horizon's maintenance AI claimed there was no fault in the circuitry. Ari said otherwise. It's not the lights, she murmured one afternoon. Perched on her favorite corner of the bunk, legs crossed, her glow pulsing faintly with each breath. It's it bleeding through again. I didn't answer right away. I was reading system diagnostics off a datapad for the 5th time in 3 days. No errors, no phantom energy spikes, just ... Cold rooms and dead spots and wireless coverage wherever Ari stood. It's feeding, she added, voice barely above a whisper, on attention, on fear. It tastes our presence and grows stronger. You say that like it's hunting us. I replied, without looking up. No, she said softly, it's hunting me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed, eyes fixed on the dim ceiling light above. Ari had curled up again on the floor near my bunk, her glow barely illuminating the edge of my blanket. Her breathing was even, but not deep. She was faking sleep, same as me. Something about that static burn in her room hadn't let go of my thoughts. It wasn't just energy discharge. It was shaped. A curve, a jagged ripple. A pattern. Like a fingerprint, but alien. Dimensional. Graffiti. Around 2 a.m., I heard something. Not loud, just ... got wrong. A distant creak, metal flexing in vacuum where no pressure shift had occurred. Ari stirred. We both sat up at the same time. Her eyes were already wide. You hear it too? I asked. She nodded. Not sound. Pressure. The wall is bending. I grabbed my weapon and flicked off the safety. Stay behind me. We stepped into the corridor, bare feet soft against the warm alloy floor. The ambient lights buzzed faintly, flickering with a delay like they were trying to catch up with our movement. Halfway to her room, every light in the hall turned off at once. Not. Dimmed, snuffed out. Complete black. Ari gasped sharply and reached for me. I grabbed her wrist. Her glow barely lit the space between us. Something scraped against the far wall. I turned my weapon toward the sound, finger tight on the trigger. My HUD display blinked a warning. Sensor blackout. Of course. Then something whispered, not in a language, not in a voice. Just a notion in my skull. Like a thought that wasn't mine. You see her. She glows. She is the breach. I backed up slowly. We're leaving now. We retreated to the room. The door hissed closed behind us, and I slammed the manual seal. Ari sat shaking, head in her hands. I felt it touch my mind, she whispered. It knows me. I'll reroute shielding again, I said, already working the wall panel. Increase EM interference, physical dampeners. Hell, I'll weld the vents shut. She lifted her head, tears catching golden in the flicker of her glow. Why are you doing this? What kind of question is that? I replied, you don't. Owe me this. I set the pad down. You're my responsibility. Her voice cracked. That's duty. I mean ... why do you care? I hesitated. She stared at me. Breath held. Because when I see you scared, alone, glowing, in the dark like you're trying to hold the night back, I want to be the wall that stands in front of you. No orders, no mission, just me. Her lips parted slightly. Her glow brightened. She reached forward and touched my chest lightly, fingertips resting over my heartbeat. The contact was warm. Steady, real. You speak like Virilians do, she whispered. But you use the wrong words. I leaned forward just enough to keep the moment from slipping away. Then teach me the right ones. She gave a soft musical laugh. Then the lights blew out again. All of them. This time the air grew colder. The walls began to vibrate with a deep bass frequency that hit bone and blood. She grabbed my hand tightly. I pulled her behind me again, weapon drawn. Something scratched outside the door. Not claws. Not tools. Just ... Something that wanted in, and I realized then this thing wasn't just haunting her. It was waiting. The alarm klaxon should have been louder. When the breach alert triggered at 3:11 station time. It only let out one sickly half wail before cutting off. Not silence choked. Horizon Station's emergency system was hardwired with redundancies, analog backups, and AI-moderated protocols. For it to fail that completely? That's when I knew I was already out of bed. Ari was crouched in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, glowing faintly like she was trying to will the darkness away. Her feathers twitched wildly, almost vibrating. With some sixth sense I didn't have. "It's not a breach," she whispered. "Not in the way you think." The overhead lights failed again. I activated my sidearm with a soft hiss and turned the emergency power ring embedded in the wall. A kinetic shimmer snapped into place around the room's interior. Not strong, but something. AI? Status? I barked. Silence. I tapped the override. AI, respond. A sputter of static filtered through the room's speakers. Then a voice distorted, broken. Connection compromised. Dimensional interference sensors. Blind suggest evacuation suggest evacu-sug. It cut off. Ari stood. Too late. It's already here. The far wall, the one closest to the corridor, breathed. There's no other way to describe it. The metal flexed inward like lungs, pulling in air. A black sheen spread across the surface, rippling with oily reflections. Then it opened, folding space like wet paper, and the thing stepped through. It wasn't tall by human standards, but its proportions were wrong. Limbs too thin, joints bending in unnatural ways. No visible face, just a shifting, featureless void. Where a head might be. It didn't make noise. It didn't need to. Every atom in the room screamed its presence. My skin crawled as if the gravity had reversed and wrapped around my nerves. I raised my weapon and fired. The first shot passed through. The second, a phase pulse, struck its midsection. The thing shuddered, not in pain but in acknowledgement. A shriek erupted. Not a sound but a frequency, something that pressed into the skull and dragged its claws across the mind. Ari fell to her knees. I stepped between them, firing again. The third shot glowed bright and hit center mass. The shadow creature staggered, but it didn't look at me. It looked past me. At her. With a speed that defied physics, it lunged, not at me, at her. Its clawed. Limb came down, and I threw myself into its path. The impact was like being hit with a freight loader. I went down hard, shoulder burning. My sidearm clattered across the floor. It towered over her, arm raised to strike. No. I shouted, diving forward, tackling it mid-swing. The room flickered as though reality itself couldn't hold still. The thing snarled in reverse of backwards. Echo and tried to phase out. I grabbed my sidearm, jammed it directly into its core, and fired everything. Full pack. The phase pulse burst lit the room like lightning. The entity shrieked one last time as the wall behind it sucked inward, pulling the creature back into some hidden fold of space with a sound like tearing fabric. Gone. The silence after was deafening. I turned to Ari. She was shaking, pupils wide, her glow flickering like a candle in wind. "Are you hurt?" I asked. She stared at me. It wanted me. It knew me. I dropped beside her, panting. "Not anymore. I'm here." "It didn't win." She hesitated, then crawled forward and leaned into me, her forehead against my collarbone. Her body was trembling, but her voice was calm now. "You stepped between. You didn't even think." "That's what friends do," I said softly, wincing from the gash across my shoulder. "No," she whispered, breath warm against my neck. "That's what protectors do." I held her, even as my pulse slowed and the pain caught up. My weapon was drained. I was silent. The wall still shimmered faintly like a bruise in space, but she was safe. That was enough. For now. I didn't sleep. Even after the breach closed and the shadow creature was gone, ripped back into whatever twisted fold of reality it had come from, I couldn't bring myself to shut my eyes. Ari had finally drifted off beside me, her breathing soft and rhythmic, head resting just beneath my injured shoulder. The kinetic barrier still shimmered faintly, casting pale light across the walls, but it didn't feel like enough. Not anymore. Every instinct in my body told me the creature wasn't done. It hadn't been defeated, just interrupted. I reviewed the event footage on my pad, corrupted. Half the video was static. The rest showed a warped blur of space around the wall before it collapsed in on itself. No facial recognition, no spectral data. Just darkness given shape and hunger. The AI still refused to boot properly. The moment I tried to access deeper diagnostics, it responded with fragmented phrases like core interference and influence unknown, recommend purge. That wasn't comforting. Around 0600, Ari stirred. Her glow returned in a slow wave, like her body was checking whether the air was safe to shine in. Her golden eyes blinked twice before locking onto me. You didn't sleep, she said quietly. No. I answered, staring at the pad. Didn't want to risk it. You should have. You bled for me. I shook my head. You're not the kind of person you leave unguarded. Her glow brightened. It wasn't just light, it felt like warmth. Something deeper. Her hand gently touched my injured arm, and a soft hum pulsed into my skin. Velian healing tone, she said. For calm, doesn't fix tissue, but soothes the pain. It did. Somehow she stayed quiet for a moment, then asked, Do you know why it wants me? I nodded. I've got a theory. And if I'm right, we're in more trouble than we thought. I pulled up an ancient Velian archive one Ari helped me decode earlier in the exchange program. A religious text, or maybe a scientific prophecy. It spoke of stubborn whispers, rare individuals attuned to dimensional threshold souls who sang in frequencies that bled into other layers of reality. You're one of them, aren't you? I said, scrolling through the glyphs. Eh? Whisper singer. Ari's glow dimmed. My mother said I was born under a collapsing aurora, that the stars flickered differently the night I came. I was always sensitive, to light, to cold, to fear, she exhaled shakily. No one wanted to say it, but yes, I think I was meant to be a beacon. Not just for our people, but for the ones who live between. Then it wasn't a random attack. That thing knew exactly who you were, she nodded, and now it knows you. The air changed again, not cold this time, got still. Like the moment before a storm breaks. A sudden thump echoed through the walls, dull and deep, not machinery, not metal shifting. Something pressing. I jumped to my feet and checked the monitor's manual ones. The AI was still offline. The thump came again. Louder. The walls didn't bend this time. They rippled, as though being watched from behind thin glass. A shape moved behind the alloy, too distorted to define. A head? A hand? I activated the emergency beacon. Nothing. The creature's influence was spreading. Ari stood slowly, her voice low and steady. It's not trying to enter this time. What's it doing? She turned, glowing brighter than I'd ever seen her. It's trying to anchor, using me as the point. No, I said instantly, grabbing the kinetic barrier emitter. I won't let it. You might not have a choice, she whispered. Unless we close the breach from the other side. I stared at her. What does that mean? She didn't blink. It means I have to go in. My heart froze. Absolutely not. She stepped forward, placing her hand on my chest, her expression calm but fierce. You saved me once. Let me do this. No, then come with me. Those words knocked the breath out of my lungs. You want me to follow you into a dimensional rupture? Her glow shimmered, softening. I don't want to be alone. Not there, not anymore. A deep, bone-rattling sound rolled through the room. The wall pulsed. Time was short. I looked into her golden eyes and realized the truth. I'd already made my choice. We stood before the wall that wasn't a wall anymore. The metallic surface rippled like the skin of disturbed water, refracting the room in twisted fragments. My kinetic barrier flickered uselessly in its presence. Whatever this thing was, it didn't care about our defenses. Ari's glow pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. She stood beside me, her bare feet rooted, her golden eyes unwavering. There was no more fear in her now, just determination. And resignation. The breach was fully open. Not a tear in metal or a hole in space, but a veil pulled thin, revealing a world not meant for eyes. Behind the shimmer, I saw movement, jagged silhouettes with too many limbs. Towers that bent inward, a sky of bruised purple with no sun. I looked away before it started to pull at my thoughts. Ari reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm, alive, and glowing brighter than ever, her entire body lit like bioluminescent fire. Her voice trembled with quiet strength. This is what I was born for, to be the bridge. But no bridge stands alone. I'm not letting you go in there alone, I said. She looked at me, and for the first time, her glow turned faintly gold. Then we go together. I didn't ask if she was sure. I already knew the answer. I pulled the last of our emergency gear from the locker tether reels, thermal shielding, and a neural anchor. If anything tried to tear our minds apart on the other side, it would at least slow it down. We linked our tethers and braced ourselves. I took one last look around the room, wondering if we'd ever see it again. Then we stepped through Dot. It was like falling without. Moving Dot sound vanished. Not just silence vacuum. The absence of vibration, of matter, of time. I reached for Ari in panic and felt her hand tighten around mine. The moment I touched her, the world slammed into place. We were inside. Ari's glow stabilized, casting golden light around us like a torch in a dream. We stood in a landscape of shattered symmetry geometry that made no sense, stairways that led sideways, structures built from pulses of memory and sound. There was no ground, but we stood. No sky, but something watched Dot, and it saw her. The creature emerged from a folding spire of static. It had grown. Now nearly 3 meters tall, cloaked in an aura of crackling darkness, jointed limbs snapping into place with soundless precision. It didn't move toward us. It just existed, radiating pressure, hunger, and something worse, recognition. It's anchored to me, Ari whispered. It's been feeding on the connection, waiting until I became strong enough to bridge the realms. I raised my weapon again. Then we severed the bridge. But before I could fire, Ari stepped forward. No, she said softly. Not with violence. Not here. That's your way. Let me try mine. She stepped toward the creature, humming Dot. It wasn't a melody. It was language. Varillian resonance. A harmonic code only beings attuned to dimensional flux could produce. Her glow surged, voice rising into chords that shimmered across the impossible structures. The creature recoiled. It twitched violently, limbs spasming, shadow aura peeling like burning paper. Her song was unraveling it not with force but with truth, with resonance that didn't belong to its twisted realm, but it resisted. It lashed out in a soundless scream. I saw Ari falter, her glow faltering like a failing star. Without thinking, I raised my voice and screamed with her, not in song, not in harmony, but in defiance. Leave her alone. Something cracked. My scream had no power here. But my presence did, my bond to her, my unwillingness to let her fall. Together, our voices, hers in resonance. Mine in sheer will shattered the space between us and the creature. It fractured. It splintered. And then, with a final ripple, it vanished. The world around us began to crumble. The dimensional pocket collapsing like a dream ending too fast. Ari collapsed into me. Her glow dim, but her eyes still lit with life. We broke it, she whispered. No, I said, holding her close. You did. A vortex opened beneath us. Our exit or a trap, I couldn't tell. But we had no choice. I wrapped both arms around her, and we fell again, through light, through memory. Through silence. And then we were back. On Horizon Station. Flat on the floor of our quarters. The kinetic barrier had collapsed. The lights were flickering normally again. And in the air stillness. Real stillness, not death. Peace. Ari groaned softly and looked up at me. Her feathers were limp. Her glow barely there. But her smile was radiant. I didn't bring the monster this time. I laughed, half in relief, half in disbelief. That's progress. She sat up, leaning against me. Will you still let me sleep next to you? I pulled the emergency blanket around her shoulders and held her close. You're not sleeping next to me anymore, I said quietly. From now on, you're sleeping with me. You're mine to protect. She blinked slowly, her glow warming. And you're mine to keep. The next few days on Horizon Station felt wrong. Not because the entity returned, because it didn single quotes t. No power outages. No cold spots. No flickering lights or pressure fluctuations. It was as if the breach had never happened, as if the creature. And its hunger had been a nightmare we both dreamed. But we knew better. Ari barely left our quarters. Not out of fear, but because the world outside now seemed thinner. She told me it was like wearing skin that no longer fit quite right. Her glow no longer fluctuated with emotion, it pulsed gently, constantly, like a warning beacon. Or a ward. She wasn't fully valiant anymore, and it wasn't just human. We'd gone somewhere no map could chart. Somewhere between thought and presence. And though we made it back, we brought something with us. Not a creature, not a shadow, but knowledge. A sense of being seen by the universe, by each other. Ari called it the mark of passage. It had left something in both of us. I didn't fully understand it. But sometimes, when I touched her hand or when our eyes met across the quiet of our room, I felt that same harmonic vibration echoing in my bones, like we were still connected. Across dimensions. And we were. But the station didn't know. Not yet. That changed on the 7th day. We were called to Central Command. Not just Ari and me, every liaison officer, every diplomatic delegate, and every xenoscientist aboard Horizon. When we arrived, the main holoscreen displayed frozen footage, taken from a deep space anomaly scanner orbiting the far side of the system. The image was grainy, distorted, but unmistakable. A ripple. A shimmer. A growing tear in space. Not near Ari's quarters. Not even near the station. This was farther out. A full breach forming near a communications relay in deep orbit. The room fell silent. Someone finally asked what it meant. I already knew. Ari reached for my hand under the table. I took it without hesitation. We didn't stop it, I said softly. We diverted it. What came for Ari, it wasn't alone. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The Admiral stepped forward. We're reading harmonic patterns similar to the anomaly. From your quarters, he said, his voice low. What do you know about this? Ari stood, barefoot, glowing, radiant. I know this, she said. They're not just invaders. They're listeners, feeders. They seek out minds that can reach. Them. They came through me because I was open. But now that I've touched them and survived, they'll seek others. She paused. And they won't always knock. The Admiral turned to me. And you, Lieutenant? I looked around the room. All eyes on me. I could lie. I could pretend. This was above my clearance, outside my expertise. But I didn't. I went with her, I said, into the breach. I saw it. I fought it. I screamed into a place where no sound should exist, and I made it bleed. And I'd do it again. The room was silent again. Then the Admiral nodded once. Then we're sending you two to investigate the next anomaly, he gestured. With a ship, your own crew, and full command authority. My jaw clenched. Ari's grip on my hand tightened. Not in fear, but resolve. After the briefing, we walked the upper ring of the station in silence. Earth's sun was rising beyond the viewport, burning gold across the station's curve. Ari leaned against me, head on my shoulder. "I'm not scared anymore," she said. "Me neither," I lied. Then added truthfully, "I just don't want to lose you again." She turned to face me, fingers brushing my jaw. "You won't. I've already chosen you, human. Your kind walks through fire when afraid. That's the courage my people never understood." I smiled, leaning into her touch. "You're not just an alien girl anymore," I said. "You're my alien girl." She laughed softly, a sound like bells underwater. "Then I suppose I'll have to get used to sharing your bed." I raised a brow. "You mean you weren't planning to stop?" She stepped closer, her glow enveloping us both. "Never." That night, before the deployment, we shared a room that no longer needed barriers. No weapons. No kinetic shielding. Just a bed. Just warmth. Just us. Because we'd faced the darkness, and we hadn't blinked out, and now, whatever waited beyond the stars, whatever other horrors lay in the folds of unspace, it would have to deal with both of us. Together.